Welcome to the OUTKAST, the Pattern Podcast.
Imagine a mountain. Not one you'll find on any map, but a peak that sort of whispers of a hidden connection.
A bridge, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A bridge between, what we know and something. Well, something more. And what if this mountain, this connection was just hidden in plain sight, only visible if you knew how to look, or maybe if you were ready to look?
That's immediately intriguing, isn't it? This idea of something profound just right there, but beyond our usual grasp.
It really sparks that curiosity, that question of what else is there?
And how do we even begin to see it?
Precisely. And that fundamental question is really at the heart of our deep dive today. We're exploring René Daumal's enigmatic and famously unfinished novel, Mount Analogue.
Ah, yes. A truly fascinating work. The premise itself is quite something.
It really is. You have this group, seekers, adventurers, led by a figure called Father Sogol.
Which is cleverly an anagram for logos, reason, essentially.
Right. And they set out on this, frankly, extraordinary expedition.
Their goal isn't just climbing a peak, though. It's finding this mystical mountain, Mount Analogue itself.
A mountain that's supposed to act as a kind of conduit between our physical world and the spiritual realm.
Exactly. But it's not on any map. You can't just navigate there using GPS.
No, the novel is very clear on this. Finding it requires something specific, a spiritual orientation combined with scientific precision. That's the phrase Daumal uses.
Which is such a curious combination, right? Spiritual orientation and scientific precision.
It implies the mountain is sort of cloaked, invisible, really, to the, let's say, unprepared mind or spirit.
And that idea of inner preparation is it's so central. It suggests the journey starts before you even find the path.
Yeah, the very act of seeking, of orienting yourself towards this possibility, it starts to change you.
The process of refinement begins with the intention, almost.
And the preparation they undertake in the book, it's intense. It's not just about ropes and supplies.
No, it's rigorous physical discipline, yes, but also mental discipline, and this deep dive into metaphysical principles.
They really have to work on themselves first. And then when they finally reach the region where the mountain might be,
They find others there.
Exactly. They're not alone. There's a whole community
Right.
drawn by the same, elusive goal.
Which adds another layer, doesn't it? This interplay between the deeply personal inner journey and finding connection with fellow seekers.
Like you recognize something in each other, a shared quest. But then there's the big twist, or rather the lack of one.
The ending that isn't an ending.
Right. Daumal died before finishing it. The novel just stops right as the characters are really starting the main ascent.
And it's this very incompleteness, this abrupt halt that many people find incredibly powerful. We'll definitely need to dig into why that might be.
Yeah, it feels less like a flaw and more like part of the point.
It leaves the journey perpetually unfinished, maybe like our own search for understanding often feels. It makes you ask, what's the real value here? The summit or the climb itself?
That's the core of it, isn't it? And that's what we want to explore today. This isn't just literary analysis. It's about looking at the ideas that present potential pathways to knowledge, to deeper understanding, things that might resonate with that, innate curiosity we all have.
Especially that curiosity about what lies just beyond the visible, the easily known.
So let's start with the mountain itself. Mount Analogue. What's going on with this central symbol?
Well, it's definitely a powerful metaphor. On one level, sure, it represents the path to self-mastery, maybe awakening, higher consciousness, that kind of thing.
The classic spiritual ascent.
Right. The connection between earth, our physical reality, and heaven, or in, a higher state of being. It suggests enlightenment isn't some impossible dream, but attainable through dedicated work, inner work.
But it's more than just a symbol, isn't it? The way it's described, the invisibility.
Exactly. That's what makes it so compelling. Trying to even conceive of an invisible mountain forces you to think differently, doesn't it? Beyond just the physical.
It pushes you.
It's almost like a conceptual challenge, hinting that the deepest truths might not be things we can just point to. They might require a different way of seeing.
So for someone listening, someone who really wants to grasp things, to get those aha moments, this suggests the key isn't just more information.
Perhaps not. Maybe the key is an internal shift, a change in how you perceive what's already there.
That idea really resonates with the feeling of being overwhelmed by information today. Maybe the issue isn't the amount of data, but our own inner state, our ability to actually perceive the connections, the meaning.
That's certainly what Dalmal seems to imply. Finding the mountain isn't about luck or just physical prowess. It's explicitly tied to a transformation of perception.
So these higher realities or deeper truths, they might be constantly present, just veiled.
Veiled from our ordinary state of awareness, perhaps, like operating on a different frequency. You need to attune yourself to even register they exist.
So it's less about gathering more puzzle pieces.
And more about developing the vision to see how the pieces you already have fit together in a new way, a more profound way.
It's about refining the inner receiver then, not just collecting more signals.
Well put, yeah.
Okay, so if perception is key, what about this strange blend Dalmal insists on? Science and mysticism. That feels almost contradictory.
It does at first glance,
Fair.
but it's actually one of the most radical and, I think, useful ideas in the book.
How so?
Well, the spiritual ascent, as Dalmal portrays it, isn't about blind faith or abandoning reason. Not at all.
The seekers are still rational.
Absolutely. They use navigation, they make calculations, they engage in critical thinking. Father Sogol, remember, represents logos reason, intellect.
So it's not throwing out the scientific approach.
No, it's integrating it. It's suggesting that true understanding requires both mystical intuition, that deeper knowing, and rigorous disciplined thought.
A balanced approach.
A very balanced approach.
Yes.
It appeals to anyone who feels that, neither pure logic nor pure feeling tells the whole story.
It's like needing both logos and mythos reason and that intuitive symbolic understanding, merging them.
Precisely. It's using all our faculties to approach the mystery, not shutting parts of ourselves down.
Which is a powerful idea for tackling any complex problem, really. Use the whole toolkit.
Definitely.
And this kind of brings us back around to the ending, or the lack of one, the unfinished climb.
Yes. If the journey itself is about continuous transformation, about this integration of faculties,
Then maybe the story can't have a neat conclusion within the book.
that's a common interpretation, and it makes a lot of sense. The unfinished nature mirrors the reality that spiritual growth, or even deep intellectual understanding, isn't a task you just complete in this lifetime.
There's no final summit you reach and say, okay, done.
Not in our earthly experience, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Mount Analog, in the story, is presented as this ongoing ascent. The work is continuous.
So the striving, the actual process of climbing, of seeking understanding, that becomes the sacred part.
The pursuit itself is the path, which should resonate with anyone driven by that deep curiosity, that desire to always learn more, understand more deeply.
The journey, I is the destination, in a very real sense here.
Exactly. And remember, they aren't alone on this journey.
Right, the community aspect.
Right.
They encounter others drawn to the mountain.
Which suggests that while the inner work is intensely personal, it doesn't have to be solitary.
Finding fellow travelers, people who get it.
Yeah, finding authentic connections with others on a similar path can provide support, different perspectives. It amplifies the journey, perhaps.
There's a sense of shared recognition among genuine seekers. That must be incredibly validating when you're exploring things that are, well, invisible to most.
It combats that feeling of isolation you can sometimes have when pursuing knowledge that isn't mainstream.
Definitely. Now, Dalmal uses a lot of symbolism, doesn't he, to kind of layer the meaning.
Oh, absolutely. It's dense with it, but in a very elegant way.
So Mount Analog itself, we've talked about higher consciousness, the goal.
Yes. And Father Sogol as that higher reason, the guiding intellect needed for the journey.
And the invisibility of the mountain.
That points to spiritual truths being hidden from ordinary, unprepared perception. Always there, but veiled.
And the preparation they undergo. The discipline.
That clearly symbolizes the need for inner work, purification, transformation before you can even perceive, let alone ascend.
It's the entry requirement.
Pretty much. And then the actual climbing, the rope they use, that symbolizes the continuous effort, the struggle, the connection needed for growth. It's active. Learning isn't passive here.
So pulling it all together, Mount Analog really does feel like a kind of, a map for the soul.
That's a good way to put it. It suggests the sacred, the profound, isn't necessarily far away or exotic.
It's hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. Just waiting for the prepared heart, the attuned mind to see it.
And that unfinished ending just keeps reinforcing that idea, doesn't it? That the climb, the seeking, it never really ends.
Each step refines you, changes your perception slightly, allowing you to see, well, more. New vistas of understanding open up.
The journey itself, the ongoing effort, is where the real transformation happens.
The journey is the destination. It bears repeating because it's so central to Dalmal's vision.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if those invisible realms of knowledge, of deeper understanding, are actually much closer than we think?
Just waiting for a shift inside us.
Yeah, waiting for our own perception to change. What invisible mountain might you, listening right now, be unknowingly preparing to see, or perhaps already starting to glimpse?
And thinking about how you approach knowledge, maybe you aim for speed, but also thoroughness. Consider how these principles from Domo might apply.
The preparation, the inner focus.
Right. The balance of reason and intuition. Maybe the deepest insights aren't just about accumulating facts faster.
Perhaps it's more about cultivating a different way of seeing what's already in front of you, a deeper quality of attention.
It's a compelling thought. The exploration, in a way, has only just begun.